The earthquakes in Texas, obviously it's nothing new, right? I mean, Texas is home to about 24 to 2,800 earthquakes every year, right? So earthquakes are nothing new. But this week, it's the last week of July, I think, second to last week of July, and we've seen some earthquakes. I think the first one in Hermleigh, Texas, near Snyder, Abilene, Wichita Falls. I think it was a 4 point something, and then around that time you had some minor aftershocks, and then again on Friday morning you had another one that was up to around 5. I think we reached a 5 this week. So this is a pretty important topic. In the Medium article that I wrote about the earthquakes, I had reached out to the Texas Department of Insurance, and ultimately the question was, who is responsible? Who's going to cover your home? Who's going to cover your business with these human-made earthquakes? Because we know these are human-made earthquakes. We know they're not just natural earthquakes that just randomly happen, like what they get a lot of in California. These earthquakes are largely due, 98% due, and I'm pretty sure science agrees with this, 98% due to fracking. They can deny that all they want, but there's physical proof that shows that fracking is the cause for these earthquakes. Well, Texas doesn't sit on any major fault lines. There's a few minor faults. We see a few earthquakes, just a handful, maybe a dozen or so a year. The experts that we talked to at the USGS were saying that there's a few dozen earthquakes a year, maybe caused by general plate movement, but those very minor. Most people don't even feel them. Most people don't even know they happen. But then you have the more significant earthquakes, like up near Hermleigh, and in the Snyder and Abilene area, Wichita Falls area, even down in South Texas, south of San Antonio, where the Eagleford Shale is, and that stretches up through Milam County and Freestone County up that way. But you see these earthquakes increasing, and they're somewhat becoming closer to populated areas. Who's responsible? Well, obviously, you be the judge, right? But who's going to take care of the damage? That's the bigger question. Less than 11% of the 30 some odd million Texans that call this state home now have earthquake insurance. Very few of them do. And these are people, a lot of these people live in these earthquake prone areas. So the bigger issue is probably you should be looking into earthquake insurance. Damage to your home, damage to your business, outer buildings, whatever. Most earthquake, this is something we learned and I talk about it in this medium.com story that I did. Most of these earthquakes, most insurance companies, I should say, don't cover human-made earthquakes. You have to get a rider, you have to get an extension, which is more money, to help cover the potential damages. So how much does it cost? We've got some quotes as cheap as $100 a year, all the way up to several $1,000s a year. I'm sure it depends on where you're at and what kind of property you're insuring. But ultimately, you could never figure out. I mean, out of these literally almost 50,000 injection wells that are in Texas, 34,000 of them are active. And that's where they take this brine and this salt water and this hydraulic fluid that the industry says is safe, and they inject it into the ground for storage, which is just, if you really, it's why the guy who invented fracking actually has doubts about the legitimacy of this thing. But it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. It creates jobs, good paying jobs. It creates, you're in debt to these companies. They invest a lot of money into these communities. Maybe a little earthquake is a small price to pay for what they're getting for it. Who knows? I mean, everybody's going to have their own take on that. So the earthquakes in Texas. Texas is not a place that significantly, Texas is not a place that generally sees a lot of earthquakes. But like I say, last year, 2,400, something like that, almost 2,500 earthquakes, and They're getting stronger and they're getting more frequent, and you have to ask yourself why. I'm Matt Pierce. I'm a freelance journalist based in Texas. I cover the environment, the oil and gas industry, and a whole bunch of other shit. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned because this is a real interesting story. And be sure to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe over on Medium as well. There's a lot of great content, a lot of bad content on medium.com too, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. Be sure to subscribe to it. I think you'd enjoy that too. So anyway, I'm Matt. Be sure to follow. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.